of monks. In the tranquil mountains of northern Thailand, where mist often clung to the dense greenery like a veil, the dawn broke quietly over Wat Phra Dhammakaya, a secluded Buddhist monastery. The temple's golden spires glinted faintly in the first light of day, a symbol of serenity and spiritual devotion. Yet, within the heart of this sanctuary, a story was unfolding that would shake the foundations of its peaceful existence. Fra Ananda, a young monk, had lived in the monastery for nearly a decade. Renowned for his deep meditation practices and gentle wisdom, he had become a respected figure among his peers. The routine of his life was simple morning prayers, meditation, alms rounds, and teachings. He had long embraced the monastic life, his days flowing like a gentle river in the calm of spiritual devotion. But as the sun rose this morning, the air held a tension that only Ananda could feel. A sense of anticipation gnawed at him, pulling his thoughts away from the simplicity of his routine. For months now, he had been corresponding with Aisha, a Muslim woman from Afghanistan who had sought refuge in the mountains. She was a scholar of Islamic mysticism, her voice filled with the wisdom of Sufism, and she had come to Thailand under the guise of seeking peace, far from the turmoil of her homeland. They had met by chance one day in the marketplace when Ananda was on his alms round. Aisha, veiled and modest, had caught his eye as she offered food to a beggar. Their eyes had met briefly, and in that moment, something unspoken had passed between them. A connection, deep and inexplicable, had been forged. It began innocently enough: exchanges about spirituality, discussions on the nature of suffering, and the parallels between Buddhism and Sufism. But as the days turned into weeks, their conversations grew more personal. Ananda found himself drawn to Aisha in ways he could not understand, ways that unsettled the quietude of his mind. He was a monk, sworn to a life of celibacy and detachment, yet his thoughts were increasingly consumed by her presence, her voice, her gentle laughter. This morning, as the first rays of sunlight touched the monastery's prayer hall, Ananda received a letter from Aisha. It was a simple note, asking him to meet her at the hidden grove by the river at sunset. His heart raced as he folded the letter, his mind torn between duty and desire. As the day wore on, Ananda tried to focus on his duties, but his thoughts were elsewhere. The hours passed slowly, the weight of the impending meeting heavy on his shoulders. When the sun finally dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Ananda found himself walking towards the river, his footsteps silent on the forest floor. Aisha was waiting for him in the grove, her figure bathed in the soft light of dusk. The river whispered gently beside them as they stood in silence, the tension between them almost palpable. Ananda could see the conflict in her eyes, the same struggle that raged within him. "I shouldn't have asked you to come," Aisha said softly, her voice tinged with regret. "But I couldn't stay away." Ananda reached out, his hand trembling as it touched hers. The contact was electric, sending a shock through his body that he had never experienced before. "I feel the same," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "But this is against everything we stand for." Aisha looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. "We are bound by the rules of our faith, but can we ignore the truth in our hearts?" The night deepened around them, the stars beginning to twinkle in the sky above. Ananda knew that their feelings were forbidden, that their paths should never have crossed in this way. Yet, in that moment, the pull of his emotions was too strong to resist. He leaned down and kissed her, a tender, hesitant touch that quickly deepened as they surrendered to the passion that had been building between them for so long. Hours passed like minutes as they lost themselves in each other, their connection transcending the boundaries of their faiths. The world outside the grove ceased to exist, leaving only the two of them, entwined in the night. But as midnight approached, reality began to seep back in. The sounds of the forest, the cool breeze against their skin, the distant echo of a temple bell, all reminders of the lives they had vowed to lead. "We can't do this," Ananda said finally, pulling away. His voice was filled with anguish, his heart torn between love and duty. "We must end this, before it destroys us." Aisha nodded, her tears glistening in the moonlight. "I know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "But how do we go back to what we were?" Ananda had no answer. The path before them was unclear, shrouded in the same mist that enveloped the mountains each morning. But as they parted ways, walking back to their separate lives, both knew that the memory of this night would stay with them forever, a secret burden they would carry in their hearts. The monastery was silent as Ananda returned, the flickering lanterns casting long shadows on the walls. He slipped into his quarters, his mind heavy with the weight of what had transpired. As he sat in the darkness, he realized that his life would never be the same. The peace he had once known had been shattered, replaced by a longing that he could never fulfill. The night was still as Ananda finally closed his eyes, the memories of Aisha's touch lingering on his skin. He knew that he had chosen the path of the monk, but in his heart, he would always carry the love he had found in that forbidden grove by the river.